The U.S. Coast Guard is searching for 4 South Korean crew members missing after a Hyundai Glovis-operated cargo vessel capsized off the coast of Georgia. 20 people have been rescued so far. The latest update made in the U.S. Congressional Research Service shows South Korea and Japan may feel compelled to acquire their own nuclear weapons if they were not confident in the reliability and credibility of the U.S. nuclear arsenal. And pro-democracy protesters flood the streets of Hong Kong, making a direct appeal to the U.S. for support, a new strategy after 3 months of demonstrations that have yielded few concessions from the city's government. But first, let's begin with that cargo ship carrying 4,200 vehicles that capsized off Brunswick, Georgia after a fire was reported on Sunday. 20 crew members have been rescued so far from the ship, which is managed by South Korean firm Hyundai Glovis. The U.S. Coast Guard is still searching for the remaining 4 South Korean crew members. Now, we have our Hong Yu on the line to give us the latest details of this. Now, we are hearing that some of the crew members of this ship are still in the process of being rescued by the U.S. Coast Guard. What do we know so far?
Well, Konyang, there were 24 people on the Golden Ray car carrier, which tilted on its left side at around 2 a.m. on Sunday local time. 8 U.S. Coast Guard units were dispatched, and they were able to rescue 20 of the crew members within 10 hours of the accident being reported. The other 4 crew members are still unaccounted for. South Korea's foreign ministry has announced that the missing 4 are South Koreans. The 20 rescued consist of 6 South Koreans, 13 Filipinos, and 1 U.S. vessel pilot. Rescue efforts have stopped for now as conditions are too risky, according to Coast Guard Charleston Sector Commander Captain John Reed. Once the vessel is stabilized, officials will try to get inside the vessel to locate the 4 missing crew members. It is still unclear what had caused the ship to tilt over, and the investigation into the incident is ongoing. Golden Ray departed from the port of Brunswick at around 1:40 a.m. on Sunday and was heading to the port of Baltimore when it began listing heavily off the coast of Georgia. The vessel is currently 1.6 kilometers away from the port of Brunswick in seawater that is just 11 meters deep. It was carrying around 4,000 cars, and as of Sunday afternoon, no active release of pollution has been observed from the vessel.
So tell me, so the South Korean firm Hyundai Glovis and the South Korean government, how are they responding to this incident? What are their first response to this?
Well, South Korea's foreign ministry says it has sent its consulate general of Atlanta to the site of the incident to team up with related ministries, including the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, to respond to the incident. And the South Korean firm Hyundai Glovis, which manages the ship, responded by making a countermeasure team of corporate officials in the U.S. to find out more on the situation. This team was dispatched last night to the scene of the incident to inform executive members at the firm's headquarters in Seoul. Hyundai Glovis says it will prioritize providing aid for efforts to rescue the remaining crew members. And to do so, they have assigned staff members who are familiar with the ship. I will give you the latest on the progress of the rescue operation in our later newscast, Konyang.
Thank you, Hong Yu, for that. Now, on to Typhoon. Typhoon Lingling became one of the most powerful typhoons to strike South Korea, wiping the peninsula over the weekend, leaving at least 27 casualties here in South Korea. According to the latest updates by the nation's Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, 3 people had died as of 7 p.m. Sunday. 13 civilians and 11 fire and police officers were injured. Around 3,600 buildings has also reported damage. And the typhoon damaged over 14,000 hectares of crops. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon will visit the damaged areas later this morning and closely assess the damage. The powerful Typhoon Lingling that swept across the Korean peninsula over the weekend has left at least 5 people dead and 460 houses damaged or destroyed in North Korea. That's according to Pyongyang's Korea Central Television, which reported Sunday that 3 people have been injured and are being treated at a hospital there. It also said that 458 square kilometers of farmland has been flooded. In a rare move, the regime's state-run media covered the typhoon in breaking news, while its leader, Kim Jong-un, convened an emergency meeting over the inbound typhoon on Friday. The number of casualties is expected to rise there. U.S. allies, namely South Korea and Japan, may feel compelled to acquire their own nuclear weapons if they were not confident in the reliability and credibility of the nuclear arsenal. Now, that's according to the latest update made in the non-strategic nuclear weapons report for the U.S. Congressional Research Service last week. The report notes that such calculations might be evident in Seoul and Tokyo as they face threats or intimidation from nuclear-armed neighbors like China and North Korea. Now, on the same day, the U.S. Congress made this update. U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, during a speech at the University of Michigan on Friday, raised the possibility of South Korea and Japan acquiring their own nuclear capabilities should North Korea-U.S. denuclearization talks end up to be a failure. Washington hopes to get back to denuclearization talks with Pyongyang in the coming days or weeks, and that's according to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pompeo also said President Trump would be very disappointed if Kim Jong-un does not return to the negotiating table. For more on Mike Pompeo's remarks, our Lee Seung-jae has this report.
In an interview with ABC's This Week on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo expressed hope that North Korea would return to the negotiating table in the coming days or weeks. Negotiations aimed at denuclearizing the North have stalled since the collapse of the second summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Trump in Hanoi back in February. While Kim and Trump met again in June at the border village of Panmunjom and agreed to reopen working-level talks, this has yet to happen. Pyongyang has also fired a series of short-range missiles in recent months in protest against South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises, further stalling the negotiation talks. However, Pompeo says while the short-range tests are disappointing, Kim has not violated the commitments he made to Trump. Pompeo did say that the U.S. president would be very disappointed if Kim Jong-un doesn't return to the negotiating table or conducts missile tests that are inconsistent with the agreements made by the two leaders. Pompeo also acknowledged on Friday during an interview with KCMO Radio in Kansas City that North Korea has the right to defend itself and assure Pyongyang of Washington's security guarantees should the regime dismantle its nuclear weapons program. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, celebrating the 71st anniversary of North Korea's founding, Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un. Now, according to Pyongyang's Korean Central Television, Xi Jinping said that he hopes for greater happiness of the people of the two countries by continuing to develop the traditional friendship between the North and China. Referring to the 4 visits made by Kim to China and his latest visit to the North in June, Xi Jinping said he's delighted to see their common beliefs becoming stronger. Now, the state-run media also reported that Russia's President Vladimir Putin sent a congratulatory message in which he described the relationship between the two countries as a constructive one based on friendship. Even after the official withdrawal of the extradition bill, pro-democracy demonstrations in Hong Kong continued over the weekend. In fact, Hong Kong demonstrators have now called on the United States to intervene in the ongoing political standoff. For more on this and other news around the world, let's go over to our Kim Da-mi in the Arirang News Center. Now, Tommy, tell us more about this Sunday's rally that's really taken a new turn. Now, Hong Kongers are asking the U.S. to directly step in their affairs.
Right, Kanyang. Hong Kong protesters chanted the U.S. national anthem and called on President Trump to liberate the Chinese-ruled city. Tens of thousands of protesters on Sunday marched on Hong Kong's U.S. consulate to call for help from the Trump administration. Hong Kong demonstrators called on the U.S. Congress to pass the proposed Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act 2019. It's a measure that will require Washington to annually assess Hong Kong's level of autonomy from China and would affect Hong Kong's preferential trading status with the U.S. The protests began peacefully but eventually turned into another violent clash with police. Hong Kong's police fired multiple rounds of tear gas in the Causeway Bay area and arrested several demonstrators at Central Subway Station. Meanwhile, pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong was arrested for breaching bail conditions on his return home from a trip to Taiwan. In a statement released by his political party, Wong said the arrest was a procedural mistake because the court had previously approved overseas trips. He is expected to be released after a hearing on Monday morning. It's been a turbulent time in Westminster as British politicians continue to battle out the terms of the United Kingdom's departure from the EU. It's likely there'll be more drama this week, beginning with Prime Minister Boris Johnson expected to call for another vote on holding an early general election. Oh Soo-young reports.
It's likely that the deadlock over Britain's departure from the European Union will continue for months to come, despite Prime Minister Boris Johnson's push to leave the EU by the October 31st deadline. After suffering a major defeat in Parliament last week by MPs who voted to block a no-deal Brexit, Johnson has raised the stakes by calling for an early general election. MPs rejected that motion, but the Prime Minister says he'll push for another vote on Monday.
Well, what he would like is for the Conservative Party to win that election with a bigger majority. He would then be able to overturn the legislation which has just gone through to block no deal and take the UK out of the European Union by the 31st of October.
Johnson said last week that he'd rather be dead in a ditch than request an extension to the deadline, more than 3 years after the historic Brexit referendum. While the opposition has voiced strong concerns about the effects of a no-deal Brexit on the British economy and possible disturbances to supplies of key imports such as medicine, hardcore Brexiteers say the UK can simply abide by WTO rules on trade with the EU, and that new and better trade deals could be made around the world. Analysts say Johnson is playing a game of chicken with his opponents, as well as Brussels, as they struggle to work out their differences over the Irish border.
I think he is committed to this idea. I think it's probably an illusion that by threatening no deal, he can somehow persuade the EU to make concessions to the UK. All the noises coming out of Brussels suggest that that strategy isn't working. It seems fairly clear, I think, to most people in this country, because we've seen leaks come out about the negotiations with the EU, that they are in fact a bit of a sham and that Boris Johnson really simply wants to take the UK out of the EU without a deal.
21 MPs from Johnson's own Conservative Party voted last week against the government in passing the legislation to block a no-deal Brexit. Those MPs have since been expelled from the party. According to British media, the group is now preparing to take the Prime Minister to court if he refuses to ask Brussels for a Brexit delay. Commentators say another way to prevent a no-deal departure would be dissolving the current government with a vote of no confidence and forming a new government that supports an extension. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The U.S. has confirmed the end of peace negotiations with the Taliban, but will keep pressuring the Taliban for significant commitments. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made the announcement on CNN and Fox News on Sunday local time. Earlier on a Saturday, U.S. President Donald Trump unexpectedly announced that he had canceled peace talks with the Taliban's major leaders. The cancellation came after the Taliban took credit for an attack in Afghanistan that killed a dozen people, including an American soldier. The Taliban, in response, said Trump's decision would lead to more fresh losses of American lives in Afghanistan. The U.S. will continue to impose sanctions on whoever purchases Iran's oil or does any business with Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Signal Mendelker, U.S. Treasury Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, told reporters on Sunday. Mendelker then noted that Iranian oil sales have taken a serious nosedive because of U.S. pressure. And the chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency said on Sunday that active cooperation from Iran was needed on its unraveling nuclear deal with world powers. The IAEA said on Saturday that it found uranium traces at an Iranian atomic warehouse. The agency will hold an emergency meeting on Monday.
South Korea's shipbuilding industry has retained its top position in terms of the number of orders in August. The nation's shipbuilding industry is showing signs of recovery with orders for large-scale projects expected to be placed going forward. Our Kim Jongun has this report.
South Korean shipyards won orders totaling 735,000 compensated gross tons in August, accounting for more than 70% of orders placed worldwide. According to data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, South Korea has now recorded the highest number of shipbuilding orders for the fourth month in a row. South Korean shipyards logged orders worth $11.3 billion in total between January and August. That puts Korea ahead of China, which saw $10.9 billion of orders over the same period. In the first 8 months of the year, South Korea won 24 of the 27 orders placed for LNG carriers, as well as 10 of the 17 orders placed for very large crude carriers.
The amount of orders has been steadily rising again since mid-August, leading to profitability thanks to increased unit costs and favorable foreign exchange conditions.
Accordingly, employment in the shipbuilding industry has also been on the rise, recording 110,000 after it fell to its lowest level in August last year. The industry is expected to enjoy continued growth going forward, with large-scale project orders expected to be placed by Russia, Qatar, and Mozambique. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
South Korea's under-18 baseball team won the bronze medal at the under-18 Baseball World Cup in Busan after a dramatic victory against Australia on Sunday. Down 5-4 at the top of the ninth, Lee Ju-hyung from Gyeongnam High School delivered a two-run home to give South Korea the 6-5 lead and the victory. The third-place finish gave the South Koreans their third straight medal finish at the Under-18 World Cup after winning bronze in 2015 and silver in 2017. Meanwhile, Chinese Taipei pulled off a major upset in the championship game, beating the defending champions Team USA with a 2-1 victory. The latest victory gives their third gold medal and their first in 9 years. Now, the Korean Thanksgiving holiday Chuseok is just around the corner, and for many people, it's time to indulge in food and drinks and, of course, your loved ones. But humans are not the only ones celebrating. Those lovey-dovey fur balls at a local zoo are getting some special treatment as well. Our Ji-young has more.
Thanksgiving will be just like any other day for the critters at South Korea's Everland Zoo. But last week, ahead of time, they had a special feast and plenty of guests to entertain. A 5-year-old red panda named Lessie is loving the special treatment. He got a traditional Korean plate called gujeolpan, full of fruits like bananas, apples, and tomatoes. This bundle of fur perched in a tree is in an extra good mood today, greeting his keeper and the dozens of visitors who ooh and ah.
That panda is eating all the delicious fruit. I want to get some for Chuseok too.
The ring-tailed lemurs are also getting some treats. It's up to the zookeeper, who's wearing the traditional Korean hanbok, to make sure they all get to enjoy the feast. It's fun for the visitors to watch the animals find, play with, and eat their treats.
We're doing this to celebrate Thanksgiving and have some fun with the animals living here at the zoo. We've set up some special ways to feed them, like the gujeolpan and putting bananas in the hay.
The treats are different for each species. Elephants get bundles of hay decorated with fruits and vegetables, which they gather around and put their snouts in. The zoo is located in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do Province, and is home to more than 1,600 animals. The pre-Thanksgiving feast has been a pleasure for the animals and the zoogoers alike. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information useful for your everyday life. Today, we begin with flu shots. Now, starting this year, Pregnant women can get flu vaccines for free at all public health centers or designated clinics. According to Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the program has been expanded to protect the health of infants. So pregnant women can go to their local medical centers to get a shot starting October 15th. Also eligible are children from 6 months to 12 years old and senior citizens over 65. Children getting their first flu shots can go earlier starting next Tuesday, while others can start going from October 15th. Senior citizens 75 years old or older can also get their shots from the 15th, and those above 65 or older can go from October 22nd. Now let's continue talking about Chuseok, or Korean Thanksgiving. It's one of the most popular times for moviegoers as well, as we have 2 working days off this year. And there are several new releases in store for movie fans in time for the holidays, with cinemas hoping they see a rebound in sales after this summer's bleak box office. Our Park Se-young tells us what those are.
3 Korean movies are set to open on September 11th, the day before the start of the 4-day Chuseok holiday. Based on the 3rd comic of the popular Tacha series about gamblers, Tacha One-Eyed Jack tells a story of a talented poker player who joins hands with a mysterious gambler. Actor Park Jung-min plays the lead role, and the film marks Yoo Sung-bum's big-screen comeback after a 4-year absence.
In the film, we start out as a team, so that should be the most fun. The characters are so diverse and each has their individual specialties.
In the bad guys' reign of chaos, several high-profile prisoners escape, and the police have to form a team with other criminals in order to catch them. The film is based on OCN's popular TV drama series The Bad Guys and stars actors Ma Dong-seok and Kim Ha-jung. The last homegrown production is the comedy film Cheer Up, Mr. Lee. Actor Cha Seung-won stars in his first comedy film since 2007 as an overgrown man-child who suddenly finds out he has a daughter he never knew existed.
I'm vaguely hoping for people to get a different colour and taste of comedy with different characters.
The movie industry is hoping that the new releases will draw people to theaters and help the industry rebound from low ticket sales during the summer peak season, when no film sold more than 10 million tickets in the July to August period for the first time in 6 years. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And if you're looking for something to do later this month, special refreshments will be available to the public at a kitchen inside Gyeongbokgung Palace later this month to give visitors a feel of how Joseon royalty enjoy their tea time. Korean traditional music will also be played in the background while visitors enjoy royal refreshments such as dried persimmon, fried lotus root, and chrysanthemum tea. Now, the special royal event will take place from the 22nd of this month to October 5th, twice every evening. A maximum of 60 people will be allowed per sitting.
Good morning. The second week of September is kicking off under murky clouds and rainfall. Autumn monsoon showers in certain parts of the country will gradually spread to the central western regions as the day moves along. And northern regions will see 30 to 80 millimeters of rainfall into Wednesday morning, and the rest will see 5 to 60 millimeters of showers. Meanwhile, Jeju is under a heavy rain alert. And temperature-wise, it's been relatively warm September, and this week is also forecast to be warmer than seasonal norms. And today's daily highs will go up a couple of notches higher than yesterday for most regions. And Gyeongju and Daegu will see highs above 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon. And thankfully, the rain will let up in time for the Chuseok holiday. We are looking at bright skies with noticeable temperature differences between lows and highs during the Chuseok holiday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
And we leave you with this breaking news coming in. Rafael Nadal has won the U.S. Open for his 19th Grand Slam championships. We'll have more on that story in our later newscast, but that's all we have for now. Stay tuned to Arirang for the day's headlines all throughout the day. Take care.
2019 has been a big year for international diplomacy in Korea, and there are profound exchanges happening between different nations every day.